Yeah, our team's excited to get back on the court tomorrow night against Texas State. In this day and time, the most important emotion is just gratitude for the opportunity to play. There's a ton of lessons that we can take from the Villanova game a couple days ago. They've got a terrific team and a terrific program. Probably the best thing about them is how well they make you pay when you make mistakes. They do a great job of that. And, we had a couple too many errors. I thought our guys did a lot of really good things. We watched a lot of tape yesterday as a group and, tried to highlight some of the good things we did in addition to a lot of the areas where we need to flat out get better. That's the exciting thing about our team. There's a lot of room for growth.
We'll open up for questions. Please use the raise hand function on Zoom and we will get to you. Dustin McComas, go ahead, please, sir.
Yeah, Shaka. Andrew, it just seems like, do you think he's pressing a little bit or maybe trying to kind of force the offense as opposed to maybe letting the game come to him a little bit? I know he's a guy that can really, really shoot the ball at a high level, and he's getting some of those looks, just not really falling right now. What are you seeing from him, and what have you guys talked about to try to get him going?
Well, I believe in Andrew Jones. He's a player that has done a lot of great things here at the University of Texas. He's a player that's been through more than any of us here at the University of Texas. And he's a guy, if there's ever a guy that you say, hey, he's going to be fine as long as he keeps shooting and keeps attacking, it's Andrew. Now, that being said, like every other player on our team, he needs to lead with the defensive end, giving great effort and giving great intensity. He needs to lead by giving his teammates energy and great spirit out there on the floor. He's a guy that the game of basketball matters as much or more to Andrew than it does anyone in our program. And that's a good thing, but it's something that, when you do go through some struggles, it can get pretty mental. And so, again, for Andrew, the emphasis from us as coaches has been focus on what you can control, focus on your teammates, focus on being the best you can be on the defensive end. When opportunities come up on offense, certainly take them. Because let's be honest, for us to be our best, we need him to be able to score the basketball. We need him to be the terrific offensive threat that he can be.
You said you guys watched a lot of film and talked about both, try to point out and highlight the good things that you guys are doing and also the biggest areas need to grow. What was an example of one of those things that you really like what you're seeing right now? And maybe what was one of those examples of just that you guys have got to really grow here quickly? I know rebounding's been a big emphasis for you guys on the offensive glass, and that's kind of been a bit of a mixed bag right now.
Yeah, it wasn't good enough against Villanova. Now, they deserve a lot of credit for it. They really blocked out well. And one of the things that happens, as a player when you're getting blocked out is you can either accept that or you can find a way to defeat the block out, as we say. And that's an area where we need to improve. I thought we had some terrific possessions, Dustin, of flying around, which is a huge emphasis for us on the defensive end. And some of those possessions worked out really well for us. But then we flat out gifted them 7 points by lunging and taking ourselves out of plays. They made 2 threes and then also a drive that we committed a foul and they made 1 or 2 free throws. That's a big difference in a 1 or 2 possession game down the stretch. So there's a ton of areas where we can continue to improve, being in good position, giving multiple efforts every time we have to. We've got 2 extremely young, talented guys in Greg Brown and Kai Jones that, I think we all know their best basketball is way ahead of them, but we need those guys to be aggressive and effective now. And absolutely, it's important for us as a coaching staff and for our whole program to get those guys better literally on a day-by-day basis.
Brian Davis, go ahead, please, sir.
Hey, Shaka, with the guys being veterans, do you feel like you can talk to them differently? Or do you feel like film session goes differently now? Because it feels like y'all's basketball IQ is at a very high level now compared to what some other teams have been in the past.
Well,
or am I wrong?
No, overall, yes. The interesting thing, Brian, basketball is such a fascinating game from the standpoint of the team and the individual. So Overall, absolutely. But then it's also something where, Scott, you may have to get that alarm. Certain individuals on our team have a lot of, maturity to continue to gain. And they're guys that, there's a ton to learn there, and that's exciting, but it has to happen fast. So when we're sitting there in a team film session, it's fascinating as a coach. You're looking out there and you see Matt Coleman and Courtney Ramey and certain other older guys, and they have a look on their face like, yeah, okay, I got that. We understand that. And then you're looking at maybe, a freshman or sophomore. I won't name any names. We don't have a lot of freshmen or sophomores. And, they're just kind of looking up in the air, and it's like, hello, I'm talking to you. Like, you got to get this more than anybody. So sometimes experience is the best teacher there, but, certainly with Matt and Courtney and some of the older guys, they have more maturity to them.
Yeah. And, talking about Greg, I mean, with every one of the one and done guys, you've always said that basically Christmas time is when it switches. Do you feel like he's on that same track, even though Greg realistically maybe have come in further ahead than some of those other guys?
I don't know. I mean, Mo Bamba was the number 2 player in the country, Brian. So some of those other guys came in, at a pretty good place too. I don't know. I mean, we're gonna see. I think he's making progress. I think that, one difference with Greg, he plays a different position than those guys. There is a little bit more decision making on the offensive end for him and his style of play versus maybe when you're playing the 5 spot. But I've got a lot of confidence in Greg that he will continue to get better. I think he's already shown some growth over the course of 5 games. He's learning to play harder. There was a play the other day against Villanova where his job was to keep Colin Gillespie from getting the ball so that we could foul someone else when we were down. And he wasn't able to do that. And Colin Gillespie, was a veteran and was savvy and just cut harder. He just cut harder than Greg defended him. So that's an example of an area where I think in time he'll realize I'm 6'9", athletic. I can keep this guy from getting the ball. We need that to happen sooner rather than later. But, does it happen by Christmas? We started the season. Obviously, we started our practice and schedule, summer school and all that later. I hope it still happens by Christmas. We need it to happen sooner rather than later because our schedule is one where we need him to keep getting better.
Nick Morrell, go ahead, please, sir.
Yeah, Shaka, we talked about this a little bit after the Nova game, but, it feels like almost we've been having this similar conversation for 4 years now about Jericho trying to find a rhythm and trying to harness all the tools that he's had. And, we've seen it before, obviously, him playing with the violence that you've spoken about, him being focused and locked in, but it seems like it comes and goes for him, and it hasn't been there as much this season as everybody thought coming in. Just, where is he at mentally, and what was the chat that you had with him after the Nova game, and how do y'all have to get him in the right state of mind?
Well, Jericho is a very unique person, very unique way that his mind works. He's a guy. He doesn't say much, but he's got a lot of stuff going on up there, and so. Yesterday in our film session, we went at him pretty hard. Some of the guys on the team did as well. And, he responded in practice. He was very good in practice yesterday. But, let's be honest, it's about carrying it over in the game. And so we've got to make sure that we really have an awareness of what exactly we expect from him and, making sure that he's clear on what those 2, 3, 4 things are. It can't be, 24 things. That's not necessarily the way that his mind operates. To be honest, the biggest thing that he could have done better, I know this probably doesn't mean much to you guys, in the Villanova game, was set screens at a better angle than he did. And that's a little detail on offense, but it means the world of difference when a team is switching ball screens. So, and he knows that. And that's something that as a senior we need from him. There's going to be a level of healthy pressure that he has to feel. He's a big boy, and, he's going to have to respond to that. But I believe in him, and I think he will.
And, I noticed after the game, y'all were walking off after the eyes and everything, and I saw Kai kind of sling his arm around Greg's shoulder, and it looked like he was consoling him, just talking to him. Obviously you guys have a lot of senior leadership on this team, but has Kai sort of maybe grown into his voice a little bit more? I mean, it looks like he was kind of trying to take on a little bit of a mentor role there at the end of that game. Just, has he grown? Where is he growing as a person rather than off? Because we've seen how good he is on the court right now.
Kai Jones has made as much growth as a person and as a basketball player as maybe I've seen any player make over the course of a calendar year, from last year at this time to now. He's really been open to, just looking at things a little bit different than the average player would. And I tell him all the time, you got to be uncommon. You have to be uncommon. And he's really embraced that. I think what you see with him and Greg is there's a kinship there because they do have certain things in common. They're not exactly the same for sure. Different backgrounds. Greg was a highly, highly ranked player early on. Kai, as late as his senior year in high school, was playing like 6-8 minutes a game. But now at this stage, right now, where they both are, they have a lot in common. What we're asking from them is similar, not exactly the same. And we need both of them to play with increased violence and aggressiveness and assertiveness. I think they also both know that their best basketball is way ahead of them, and they feel a little bit of a pressure or attention to get to that sooner rather than later, both for the team and for themselves. And so, there's just a kinship there that I think those guys feel, and it's good to see them, bonding and communicating.
John High, go ahead, please, sir.
Coach, you talk about your guys that are older and some of them needing to mature. How do you have to stress not looking ahead with these guys, or do you feel like they know the task at hand? Because it'd be easy to look ahead to Baylor on Sunday.
Well, no, it's something we talk about for sure. I think in sports, anytime you're coming off a big game, or in our case, we played Indiana, North Carolina, and Villanova in our last 3 games. And then you have a game coming up, and the following game is another big, big name. In this case, a conference game. Team picked to win our conference. You always have to check your maturity level and your focus level on, like, where are you as a team? I told the guys yesterday, I said, this is going to be as much of a statement about us as any game that we play, because the very same guys in this room, coaches and players, this is when we were talking yesterday, have experienced games like this where we've not been our best in the past. And, that's either cost us in that game, or it's cost us later on because we didn't build the habits that we needed to build. So that's at the front of our minds for sure. Now it's about going out there and doing it. Texas State's got a really nice program. TJ's doing a really good job there. I'm proud of him. And so it's not like it's going to be easy. It's not like we can throw one punch and it's going to be over. We're going to have to play for 40 minutes.
Bob Ballou, go ahead, please, sir.
Shaka, this is kind of a little bit of a bigger picture question, but you've gotten off to some really good starts at Texas, and I know it obviously hasn't ended the way you wanted it to. I'm curious what you've learned over the years about trying to build your team into March, and what you maybe have changed over the years to try to get them at their peak then. I know you try to go day by day and get them better and better, but is there something you've learned or changed in the long run to try to get those guys to really be at their best in March?
No, I mean, there's no magic formula, Bob, for that. If there was, all the coaches would be following it. I mean, at the end of the day, it's, we come together as a team, and at this level, every player comes into the season planning out a 10 out of 10 season. So whatever you could imagine is the absolute best season a player could have. Every guy on our team planned that season throughout the spring, the summer, the fall, and now we've played 5 games. And who's having a 10 out of 10 season on our team? And the reality is, I mean, look around the country. I mean, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way individually. It doesn't work that way as a team. So the sooner, for any team, including us, the sooner that we can understand that, it's about growth, personal and collective growth. It's about trying to improve in specific basketball areas that will help us get stops on defense, score baskets on offense. And within that, there's certainly an individual component. I mean, we want our guys to play well individually. It's not one versus the other. But a lot of times, once you get into games, some of that stuff does impede, the growth towards, progressively getting better and better and better towards March. In terms of getting off to a good start or, what happens after that, it's our job to be better. It's December 8th. We want to be better on December 9th than we were today. That sounds like a cliche, but I mean, that's what the best teams are able to do. Now, with this year and all the circumstances, there's certainly some curveballs that are thrown in there, and we've got to manage those and be adaptable, be flexible. But we have guys that have been through twists and turns. We have guys that have felt what it feels like for everybody to say they're no good. So it's like, guys, it's about us focusing on growth and togetherness in each other. And it's really not overly complicated, but that doesn't mean it's easy.
And then second, just where is Donovan Williams right now in his progress and obviously trying to get more minutes and crack the rotation?
Donovan Williams is making a lot of progress. I mean, he had very serious knee surgery in March. Him and Jace Febris both. He worked his butt off to recover from that and train from that. He's a guy that he's just come a long, long way, but he's not all the way back to 100%. So he's growing, he's improving, and I think he's moving the right direction for sure. Now it's going to be a matter of what type of growth and progress is he able to put together over consecutive days and weeks to go out there. But I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I thought was one of his best practices he's had.
Joe Cook, go ahead, please, sir.
Shaka, kind of going back to Andrew, how did he react to not playing in a lot of crunch time on Sunday and getting back to the gym? And, what conversations did you have with him after basically sitting him for most of the second half in these past couple of days?
We didn't really focus as much on playing time as we did on what we can do collectively and what he and I can do to just help him play better and help him be in the best mind place. And I mean, Andrew has been around basketball a long time. He knows, when he's playing really well, and he knows if he's not playing as well, and he wants to help the team. He wants to be in a good place. So my focus is more on just trying to remind him of, hey, these are the areas where you have a level of control. You can put your emphasis on that and, try to help your teammates, especially as an older player. Then all of a sudden you're going to be able to lose yourself in that fight, and good things are going to start happening for you.
Brian Davis, last one in the queue. Go ahead, please, sir.
Hey, Shaka, going back to Jericho real quick. Number one is, when he picks up an early foul, does that mess with his head?
I think it's upsetting to him. You notice, Brian, when he picks up a foul, like his immediate reaction, like he gets pretty upset with himself.
Yeah.
But hey, that's part of the game. I mean, you got to be able to respond and kind of keep flowing with it and do the next thing. He's a guy that, believe it or not, he's got kind of a trait of perfectionism in his head where he kind of beats himself up when he does that. But the reality is he's got to do what's next. And we're going to work on not fouling. We're going to work on what goes into being successful on defense, but it's going to happen sometimes. So, listen, I know he's played 5 games and, you know, trust me, nobody wants him to do better or more out there than he and I do. But I believe in the guy, and I think he's got it in him. You know, I also think that Royce Ham is really, really helping us. And you know, in some of these games recently playing better than him. So there's a level of pressure, I think, that positive pressure that Jericho should feel, hey, I got to step it up.
Right. And that was also what I want to ask too, is that at what point would it behoove you to make a change in the lineup? Because that was a big thing, I think, 2 years ago that got Jericho's attention was not starting, going with more Kai or Royce.
I mean, Brian, it's stuff that we talk about on a daily basis as a coaching staff. You know, our starting lineup is something that, you know, there's a variety of reasons why you may decide to keep it the same, or you may decide to change it. Statistically, it's not been our best lineup, not even close. So
Starting when you mean?
Starting lineup, but that's been through 5 games. You know, one of the things about statistics in college is, unlike the NBA, you know, we don't play so many games that it's like, wow, like 30 games worth, you know, it says this lineup. So is better. So 5 games, you know, that's a decent amount of games, but I think we know that certain guys can play better. You know, that certain lineups can play better. There's a lot of things that you factor in. So we'll see. I mean, this game on Wednesday gives us another opportunity to look and see who's playing well. You also factor in practice, which you guys don't necessarily see. So there's a lot of things that go into those decisions. But at the end of the day, I mean, we could start, you know, a completely different lineup, and that's not necessarily what's going to determine how we play over 40 minutes. It's a matter of all of our guys, when they come in the game, how ready they are, how committed they are to defense, and then going and making the right plays on offense.
Jim Vertuna, I do have time for your question. Go ahead, please, sir.
Okay. Shaka, it appears that Texas State's previous opponent had some COVID issues. I know there's still some testing going on, but is that the sort of thing that could impact Andrew's availability? How cautious do you have to be with him, knowing you've got these degrees of separation, but you've still got some issues going on within just a couple of days with the lineup you may be playing now?
Well, I got a call about that yesterday, and I mean, the first thing I did is called our medical people because, you know, at the end of the day, we have to defer to them in terms of telling us what's safe and not safe. We're really fortunate to have Dr. Bray here. He's done a great job with all the sports. You know, I know Texas State's initial test after that game, everyone was negative. They tested again yesterday. I don't know if they've gotten those results yet. I have not heard. You know, obviously, if there's anything positive there, that changes a lot. But you know, they've kind of told us, our medical folks have told us to, you know, just kind of stay alert to what we're hearing, and that they'll keep us posted. The one thing that we have found in the games so far, not just us, but around the country, is the level of contact with opponents. While it is, you know, obviously close and intense, in terms of minutes, is not particularly high. Now, that does not mean that someone couldn't, you know, transmit COVID, and certainly could happen. According to our medical people, it has not happened very much, but the season just started. So, you know, that's something that remains to be seen. We will make sure our players are aware, you know, of everything. And then we'll, at the end of the day, we'll defer to our medical folks, but also make sure that our players have a comfort level with what they're doing, and our coaching staff as well.
Anything else, Jim?
I just was curious. I mean, does Andrew's situation create an extra layer of caution for him specifically?
Well, going back to the spring and the summer, on that was probably the first thought, Jim, was, how does this impact him? And the first person that we wanted to talk to was his doctor at MD Anderson, who's been, just phenomenal. And, it was interesting. According to that doctor, again, this is not me, I'm not a doctor, but according to him, Andrew's not necessarily at any more risk than anyone else, which that was great to hear. It was a little surprising, but it was great to hear. Now, it's still, even hearing that, you still, feel a little bit more conservative as it relates to, just because of what he's been through. And so, there's conversations that, we've had and will continue to have with Andrew, and it's tricky because he's a guy that wants to be out there as much or more than anyone, but he's also been through all these things. And, at the end of the day, for all these guys, they're safe, and their safety and their well-being is the most important thing. So, in a situation like this, we'll communicate fully to him. We'll let him know what our doctors are saying. We'll let him know, where things are with Texas State. And then ultimately, if his comfort level is there and our medical people say that it's safe, then that's what we go with. If any of those things are not there, then we do something differently.